Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Manifesting Muslima. I'm your host Zara Pedersen and today's topic is procrastination. Now that might sound like a slightly different topic than, law of attraction from an Islamic perspective, but I can promise you that it actually does go hand in hand with law of attraction, and mainly it is one of the things that stops us from taking action when it comes to the law of attraction. So if you've been following me for some time, you'll know that I teach the law of attraction from a perspective of it's more than just your thoughts and your vibrations. Your thoughts and your vibrations go a long way, but ultimately, in order to manifest the things that you want quicker and to make the space for Allah to introduce the manifestations to you and the blessings to you, you also have to take some steps in order to make it happen and for the manifestation to come quicker into your life. And this is where quite often people tend to procrastinate. They also tend to procrastinate a lot in the beginning. I know that I did that and have done that in many occasions at the beginning of a journey. So we're going to talk a little bit about everything, and then at the end of the podcast, I'm going to give you some practical tips. But please don't fast forward to the end of it, because there's actually some really good points that I want to share before you go there, because your problem might not lie in the fact that you need tips and tricks, but might be because of something else that I'll be speaking into in a minute. So before anything, when we scroll on social media, when we go online, when we're watching TV, when we're doing anything, we're being bombarded with information. And it's information from people who we might feel are doing better than us, especially on social media. And the way that, like myself, there are people out there who are like, hey, I've kind of, mastered this thing, or I feel like I know a little bit more than the average person about this subject. So now I'm going to teach others so that they can, benefit from this knowledge as well and hopefully improve their lives. And when we're going online specifically, we're kind of bombarded with all this information about how to sleep better, how to eat better, how to move better, how to be a better person, how to work better, how to, speak better, anything. It's like there's so much information out there. And while a lot of it is interesting to us and we're like, wow, I want to learn how to do that, or hey, I want to figure that out, or hey, that's a theory I've also been interested in. The reality is that the information overload sometimes keeps us stuck because we feel like there's still more to know. There's still more information that I haven't been told yet. There's still something that I haven't been told that I need to know before I embark on this journey. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's for the first time today, I got a message. And of course, it's when I'm sitting down to record a podcast. That's the way it is. And just your way. It's probably my mum being like, hey, are you okay? Nothing wrong with that, by the way. I fully love it when she does that. Anyway, so the point is that we will sit back and think, okay, there's almost like this fear of missing out on information that means that we're kind of scared to take that next step and just start the journey. And even if we feel like I've got all the information, there's a part of you that still feels like there's something still missing, because you want to do it perfectly. You want to start at a perfect time. This is why people are saying, oh, I'm not going to start on my diet now. I'll start next month because, this week I've already messed up. And, your body doesn't keep track on days that way like you do. So you could start literally right now. I don't care what you're doing. You could literally start right now if that's what you wanted to. All you had to do was decide, make the decision and go for it, right? But this is where we kind of get in our own ways because we feel like it has to be perfect or I have to know all the information. And most of the time, I'm not going to say all the time, but I'd say 95% of the time in this day and age, you probably know the most important things to get started. And the first step and the beginning of the journey is probably going to be a little bit messy. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to stumble around a little bit until you find your footing and you've created some habits around whatever it is that you're trying to do. Take the law of attraction, for instance. I tell people, just get on it. What is it that you want? Start making the dua, start working on yourself. And they're like, but I don't know what to do after that. Well, in the first few steps already, that could take you quite a while if you're not used to doing that kind of work. Or it could take you no time at all if you already know what it is that you want. When you need the information, go look for the information. When you find yourself at a crossroads where you're like, I'm not sure which direction to go, then go and look for the information that you need to take that next step further. But you don't need to know what comes after LMNOP if you're still stuck on A and B. You can still get started until you reach LMNOP. And then once you reach that point, maybe you'll already know the information by then because time will have passed, or you can look it up and then find the information that you need. But that's one of the first things, the procrastination, because we feel like we want to know more, but we kind of already know enough to get started. And this idea that it has to be perfect from the get-go. I quite like to use the example of Islam and just religion in general, the whole point of it, being a test from the beginning. So we have to say our shahada as Muslims, but that's just the beginning. That just marks the beginning of our journey. And we don't know everything there is to know about Islam at that point. Well, I would at least argue nobody, most people don't know everything about Islam at that point, but you'll have some sort of knowledge. But the rest of your life is you dedicating yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to His will and learning when you need to know certain things about Islam. Many of us might not know, the rules about, what's it called, when you die and pass on money. Heritage? No, that's not what it's called. There's a word. You're probably shouting it at me right now. But when somebody leaves a will for someone and who's going to inherit what? Inheritance. That is the one. Inheritance. Thank you. I felt your energy giving it to me. So I appreciate you, babe. So inheritance. So a lot of us might not know the rules off the back of our hand, but when it becomes, the point where that is something that we have to look into, then we look into it and then we figure it out. A lot of people don't need to know about the how a divorce happens, because you don't need to know that unless you're going to get a divorce. I learned a lot about my divorce or about Islamic divorces when I had to go through a divorce myself, but it wasn't information that I had somewhere stored in my mind because it wasn't relevant to me at that point. So a lot of it is also, learn as you need. Okay, so the second thing, and this is where I feel like it becomes very, very relevant for you. If you feel like you've actually started on your journey, you know what it is that you want, all of these things, but you're still struggling to do the thing, I would actually do some inner work, because clearly there's something within yourself that is, obstructing you from going from A to B. So there might be a belief system or something that you may never really have thought about that's preventing you from just taking the damn action. And it's usually not because you're lazy. It's usually not because, you're horrible time management or anything. There's usually something else laying behind all of that. So I'll take an example from my own life. So this company, Manifesting Muslimah, that I've wanted to set up for quite a while now, I was procrastinating heavily on doing it. And when it came down to it, it was because I didn't believe that I was worthy enough to teach other people this, because I kept thinking, well, you don't know everything about Islam. You don't wear a hijab. You're not the perfect Muslim. And it was holding me back, because I thought I had to be like this perfect Muslim in order to teach anything in relation to Islam, even if it was law of attraction. And it held me back for so long because I kept thinking that I had to be something different in order for me to be able to take this role. And it wasn't until I sort of worked on that belief that I was able to kind of get over it and set up my first post and be like, hey, we're going to do it now. Enough of this, because you're never going to know everything about Islam. And if you're waiting for that day, then it's never going to happen, right? And another thing that has happened while I've sort of been active and on Manifesting Muslimah is that I've been procrastinating on certain things, and I've noticed it about myself. The reason is, this is specifically speaking to finishing the book, which I am currently working on. Don't worry, it is coming sooner rather than later, because I've overcome this thing. But I kind of got stuck on finishing the book, Manifesting Muslimah, A Muslim's Guide to the Law of Attraction. But I got stuck on it because a part of me, a belief was telling me that I wasn't allowed to make money off this. That if I genuinely wanted to help people, then I surely should just give stuff away for free. So I had to work on that belief. And once I started working on that belief, another belief came up, and that was hiding underneath that. And then the other belief that came up for me was, what if nobody buys it? What if nobody buys it? You're going to put all this work in, but then nobody's going to buy the book. Nobody's going to want it. You're not going to make money off it. So I had these beliefs that were holding me back from sitting down and doing the work. And it wasn't until I sat down and actually understood that what was holding me back was not me saying, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow because I'm lazy today or because I'm super busy today. It was because there was an underlying belief that made me procrastinate because there was a fear in A, doing it, and B, doing it and then it not having the outcome that I would want for it to have. So if you're finding yourself procrastinating on something, I would urge you to look at what feelings are coming up for you, because more likely than not, there's a reason for the procrastination. There's a reason why it's there. Everything has a reason behind it. There's a meaning behind everything, right? So even when you think, oh, I'm just poor management or poor time management, or I'm just, I just get carried away watching, I don't know, Friends on whatever streaming service they're currently on or whatever, it's usually because there's something else kind of holding you back, whether it be a fear of success, fear of failure, fear of people not liking what you have to put out there, fear of overdoing it. If somebody else is also doing it, that you're maybe doing too much and then people are not going to like you anymore. There's going to be something that's going to be coming up for you. And it's so important that you get to the root of that thing, because if you don't, you're going to struggle with procrastination on that subject or in that specific field for the rest of your life. A problem left unsolved is not going to go away. Most likely it's going to stay there. And then, when you're really unfortunate, it grows. So take the time to look at the underlying issue. What's actually going on if you're constantly procrastinating on something? What is it what belief is it that's holding you back? What is it that keeps you from actually just going in and doing the damn thing? And you'd be surprised quite often at how simple the answer is. In my case, it was like, well, what if it fails, Well, I won't know that until I write the book. But is that going to make the book less of a success? No, absolutely not. I'll still be so proud of myself for finishing the book. Even if it sells 10 copies, I'll be like, wow, 10 women found the information valuable enough to, buy the book. And that'll be enough. But the point is that I won't know any of that until I take the action, until I sit down and write the book, right? And in terms of, oh, who am I to teach and I should be giving it away for free? I'm really serious about, helping people. Well, that's all very nice and well, but, generosity doesn't pay bills. I can't help people if I don't have a place to live. I can't help people if I'm starving to death. So, there's always an argument against it. So whatever your belief that comes up for you that has been keeping you from doing the thing and procrastinating hard on the thing, argue against it. Just argue against it. And I promise you, there's going to be so many things that you can say against it, even if there's some validity in it. Yeah, there's a lot of validity in, what if the book fails? That is a huge point. It could very well fail. But what if it doesn't? What if it actually helps all the people that you want it to help? And, so sit back and argue against yourself in those terms, like figure out what it is that's actually holding you back. What is it? What's the belief? What's the mindset? Whatever it is that's going on inside of you that's keeping you from actually just sitting down and doing the damn thing. Okay, now I'm going to take you through a couple of things that I would use, like practical tips in terms of procrastinating, that I found very, very helpful. And this is not coming from, from an expert opinion. This is basically just what has helped for me, and hopefully you can find something beneficial to you. The number one thing that I've sort of done in the past and still utilize to this day is the Pomodoro technique, because it is such a short amount of times to work that is sort of like, okay, I can sit down and focus for 20-25 minutes with a 5 to 10 minute break after. So if you don't know the Pomodoro technique, it's you set a timer for 20 or for 25 minutes. And in that 20 or 25 minutes, you work, and that's all you do. You just sit down and you do the work on the thing. And then the alarm's going to go off. And then if you took a 20-minute work shift, then you take 5 minutes as a break, and you literally stop when the alarm goes off and get away from the work. Don't continue working. And then stretch your legs, make yourself a cup of tea, check your emails, I don't know, whatever. and then come back again and then do another stretch of 20 minutes. If you're doing 25 minutes, I think they suggest you take 10 or 15 minutes as a break. But either way, that's just like, there's lots of techniques like this one. This is one of those that I've really, really liked. And when it comes to sort of me writing my books, and now I'm not talking about the Law of Attraction book, now I'm talking about my novels, that has been such a great help for me in terms of just sit down, get started, and don't worry about so many other things. So I would say look at a technique that works for you. The Pomodoro one works really, really well for me. You might find something else that works for you. Another thing that sort of to get me the motivation to do the work is thinking of the bigger picture. This is annoying, I know, but I can't help but sort of mentioning this because we all operate differently. Some of us needs, those techniques like the Pomodoro technique, and some of us need something a little bit more I don't know if I should call it like spiritual or meaningful or whatever. But if you're anything like me, you find death, for instance, a motivation. I know that sounds really morbid, but I don't mean it to be. But I mean as in like, the moment that I draw my last breath, I don't want to live in regret for not having done more. And so that's a huge motivation for me to get more done. Because I'm like, okay, I don't know when that day is. Hopefully it'll come later rather than sooner, but let's be real, none of us know. So I just need to get a lot of things done while I can, instead of living in the regret. And it might not even be death. It might be, something happens and I lose my ability to write or to create or whatever it is. So, using the blessings that Allah has given me and trying not to take it for granted. It's a massive motivation for me. And if you're anything like me, it might be the same for you. Another way that I motivate myself is thinking of the end goal. So knowing what it is that I want as the end result of what it is that I'm supposed to do that day is a huge motivation for me as well to kind of get my ass into gear, because it's sort of like, if I don't do this step, then I keep, postponing the ultimate gratification of me doing this one step. So the more I'm procrastinating on writing any of my books or putting out a course for you or putting out a podcast episode or getting on my TikTok and answering questions or whatever, the more I'm delaying the ultimate gratification, which is my end goal, right? Which would be to be able to have a sustainable business doing what I love, guiding women on how to use the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective, right? So that to me is such a huge drive because it motivates me. It's like, wow, I really want that. Okay, let me just do the things, because the faster I get those little things done, every little thing that I get done is one step closer to that big thing. So that's another thing that I do to help myself. The last thing that I'm going to give as a practical tip, and I know this is going to sound a little bit weird, but hear me out. Use your cycle, your period and your whole 28-day cycle. Use it, learn about it and use it. And this is new for me. So I'm still quite new to this. I've been doing it for about, I want to say 4 or 5 months now, but it's so beneficial to me. And if you've been online any length of time, you've probably seen some women on there talking about how, you need to work within where you are in your cycle, that there are certain times within your cycle where you have more creativity. There's certain times where you need to take a step back and reflect and make mood boards and whatever. And then there are other times, you might have heard it with fitness, because I think one of the first ways it kind of became mainstream was through fitness, and when to do the hard workouts and when to kind of do Pilates, yoga and stuff like that. But now they've obviously also, looked at the work week and how women work best. And we actually work in the same way that, our energy goes up and down throughout the 28 days, the same way our work motivation goes up and down according to where we are in our cycle. And it's really interesting. Don't tell me how to explain it, because this is not my expertise. I'm following other people who are, preaching these things. So I can't, if you need that kind of information, go look for them, because there are plenty of them. And it's so, so interesting. And I started doing it, as I said, a few months ago. And my work morale has just been very different, because now when I'm reaching a specific type of season in my cycle where I don't feel like doing the work or I don't feel very creative, I know that it's because I've reached a specific season of my cycle, and I I show myself more grace for taking a step back rather than beating myself up over it. And so it's just been such an interesting thing for me to learn that, hey, that naturally we as women have these seasons within our cycle where we are more proactive and, get more things done, and we have the energy to solve big problems and stuff. And so to try and work out your schedule so that you're working within your high seasons versus the low seasons being where you can reflect more and read more and study more versus the going out and the doing and writing and the making and creating. I don't know. I can definitely feel a massive difference in my productivity, and especially also my ability to forgive myself and show myself grace when otherwise, before that, I would have just been like, oh my God, I'm so lazy. Why am I lazy? Everybody else is getting everything done. And basically just beating myself up because hormonally within my cycle, I just wasn't in a place where I was the most creative and where the energy was aligned with doing a lot of big problem solving. So I would definitely say as women, we definitely need to understand that a lot more and try and live into that a lot more. And I would definitely urge you to do the same thing. And I should have probably looked at who I could have recommended for you. But you know what? You're just going to have to go in and look for yourself. Do that research for yourself and find somebody that you like, that speaks to you. Because again, there are plenty of them out there. And it's just been such a great help to calm my mind when I feel like I should be doing more. But then I remember, hey, I'm in the season now of my cycle where I need to take a step back. So no wonder I actually want to just sit back and relax rather than work myself to death. Anyway, that is enough of my rambling. I hope there was something in there that was beneficial to you. It might not all have been relevant to you, but there might have been little things in there that you were like, hey, I can kind of use a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Feel free to take what you can use and leave the rest. Not everything is for everyone, and that is okay. If you have a suggestion for a podcast episode, please feel free to hit me up over on Instagram at manifestingmuslimah. And share your suggestion with me over there. But until next time, my darling friend, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, please don't forget to live in love.